The story of me as a photographer starts on the day when our family apartment got burned down together with thousands of prints and negatives my father, an ardent amateur photographer, had accumulated. On that day, I became one of those refugees with no photographs, with no past. Indeed, my memories of the events and people I encountered before that Sunday in September 1991 are either non-existent or very vague. As Joseph Brodsky wrote, memory betrays everybody, especially those who we knew best. It is an ally of oblivion. It is an ally of death. It is a fishnet with a very small catch and with the water gone. You can't use it to reconstruct anyone, even on paper. That day I learned the power photography has over memory. The day after the fire was the last time my father took a photograph, a perfunctory snapshot to record the damage for the insurance company. Where he stopped, I started. The act of photographing, of looking at the world through the camera lens, helped provide a semblance of control over an otherwise unpredictable world. I'm Dragana Jurisic. I'm an ex-Yugoslav artist based in Dublin for the last 16 years. I left Croatia in 1999. The war has by that time moved to Kosovo and Serbia, so I didn't leave because there was an imminent danger, but I became very disillusioned with politics in Croatia at the time. Croatian government was run by a real right-wing conservative, I would describe them as a fascist party led by Franjo Tudjman. There was no kind of even attempt to reconcile with the stuff Croats did to Muslims, for example, in Bosnia. There was still kind of culture of fear and lies, and I just didn't want to spend any more of my life living in a country like that. I would describe myself as an exile because the country that I felt was my country, Yugoslavia, has disappeared, so I didn't really have anywhere to return to. And what I think being exiled gives you, it unsettles you, and you start seeing everything like a new space. So I don't know if you know that phenomenon when you travel, you take much more pictures than in your hometown. And it's because you're kind of unsettled and your senses are turned on, so you are actually observing your environment. It's kind of survivalist mechanism. You need to know what's around you when you're in a new spot. And I think being exiled does that. It kind of permanently sets you in this mode of never being comfortable with your surroundings. So you're constantly turned on and observant. You, the lost country, would have never stand a chance of being shown in institution in ex-Yugoslavia. I have a show of my new work coming up in a Museum of Modern Art in Rijeka and a gallery in Zagreb, but I really believe that this work would never be funded to be shown in a government-supported place. And the reason for that is because countries that once belonged to ex-Yugoslavia are still doing their best to obliterate any kind of memory that this country existed. So, for example, in Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia, you're not allowed to put on census that you're Yugoslav. There is no option. So if you are like me, a child of mixed marriage, my dad is Croat, my mom is Serbian, and I was Yugoslav until the 16th birthday, and there was 1.5 million Yugoslavs living in ex-Yugoslavia. They just disappeared, you know, they vanished into space, you know, they became this kind of mythical nation, like Atlantis people. Like, I really believe that nationalism is ideology of idiots. And I don't just imply that in former Yugoslavia, everywhere around the world. It's an ideology of people who have no kind of sense of self, and so they need to attach themselves to other kind of constructs, you know, like a football team or a nation or a part of town. And I really have no respect for their opinion. I don't think there's any anger in my work. I think it's quite melancholy, actually. I don't feel I mean, I feel angry in words, you know, but I kind of think that images have a deeper meaning to what I am than my words do. So like in my book, in my writing, you would come across of some kind of angry, like I was angry, but like deep down under this anger was sadness, really, for what was past and what will never be again, and how people there, even these nationalist people, how they, you know, risked their lives or got killed for what? For nothing. For the economic situation 20 years later that is worse now than it was then. No sense of hope. I mean, what did they get? Like, they got, instead of one semi-screwed country, they got like 8 or 6 really screwed countries, basically. I became an Irish citizen in 2009, and the reason I did it, well, why not? I mean, I can have a dual citizenship as a Croatian and Irish. I'm like really neither of. I am both, but yeah, neither. And I became Irish because I really appreciate living here. You know, for the last 16 years, like this was kind of a safe oasis to me. I really like people here, and what is really, really good for me is the fact that, you know, your frontline news won't even make news where I come from. So this makes me really happy, you know, that I live in a kind of civilized society, really, in terms of when it comes to politics and corruption. Like, Irish people might disagree, but like, you know, I would challenge them to maybe study what's going on in ex-Yugoslavia. The next work I'm making or writing will be more a novel in a classical term. There will be some images in it, but not maybe necessarily my images. The work I'm making is primarily about my aunt who escaped Yugoslavia in 1950s and ended up in Paris. She was an uneducated girl from a small village. She knew, like, I think she had 4 grades of school. And basically in Paris, she ended up working as a spy. And there are some rumors that she was involved with sex industry, although I can't really prove that. And what I'm doing at the moment is I'm writing a kind of fictionalized biography of hers. Before there is alleged also rumor that she was poisoned by radium in 1987 before communism fell. That was the way for them to get rid of lots of old spies. And before she died, she knew she was dying, she came and brought her personal photographs back home, of which her mother, being afraid of consequences, burned apparently 70% of it. But I got what was left behind, and is trying to like read between the lines with these photographs from her life in Paris and reassemble her life, basically. And I also she was doing lots of like Super 8 shooting, so she also left a camera behind with like spare batteries, spare rolls of film that are now like 35 years old, might not work at all, but also like I'm using them to kind of try to recreate the life that was censored. So that's the next project.